You smell it before you even open the door. Something warm and sweet and spiced, something that wraps around you like a blanket the moment you step inside. And for just 1 second, you're not wherever you are right now. You're back. Back in somebody's kitchen. Back at somebody's table. Back somewhere you felt safe and loved and full. That smell. That's what I'm talking about today. Today we slow down and remember 30 forgotten African American desserts that almost nobody makes anymore. By the time we're done, you'll want to call somebody you love and get into a kitchen. I'm Gloria, and I've been cooking in this kitchen for more than 60 years. I learned from my mama, and she learned from hers and hers before that. So many of those beautiful desserts that used to fill our kitchens and our church halls and our family reunions are disappearing quietly, one by one, because nobody wrote them down, because we thought there'd always be time. Before we start, I have to tell you about one recipe in particular. My grandmother called it sweet potato pone. She almost took it to her grave. Almost. I'll share the whole story before this video is over, and I think it might be the most important thing I tell you today. So stay with me. Let's pull up a chair. Number 1, tea cakes. Tea cakes were not fancy, no frosting, no filling. Simple hand-rolled cookies from flour, sugar, butter, and buttermilk, with a little nutmeg if your mama was feeling generous. You mixed the dough right on the kitchen counter, rolled it flat, and cut circles with the top of a drinking glass. No cookie cutters, just a glass turned upside down and pressed into dough. They baked up golden and soft with a little crunch at the edge, smelling like vanilla and Sunday morning. My grandmother kept them in an old tin on the counter. Every child who came through that door knew where that tin was. You didn't ask, you just reached in. She never said a word, because she'd put them there for exactly that reason. Made to be shared, made to stretch. Don't let tea cakes disappear. Number 2, sweet potato pie. The old way. Most people today start with canned sweet potatoes, but the women in my family roasted them whole, skin on, until the insides were soft and sweeter than anything you've tasted. They'd mash the flesh by hand with a fork, then stir in eggs, cane syrup, not just regular sugar, and fresh grated nutmeg. It baked in a lard crust until deep amber, with just a faint jiggle in the center. My mama made 3 every Thanksgiving. People snuck back to the kitchen before dinner even started. She knew it and never said a word. Number 3, blackberry cobbler. We picked those berries ourselves, early morning, coffee cans in hand, down where the bushes grew wild at the edge of the woods, fingers purple, legs scratched. Nobody cared because we knew what was waiting at home. Grandmama simmered those berries with sugar until thick and syrupy, dropped big spoonfuls of biscuit dough right on top, and slid that cast iron skillet into the oven. The topping soaked into all that purple juice, turning soft and dumpling-like at the bottom while staying golden on top. Served warm with heavy cream poured right over. Summer on a plate, every July. Number 4, crackling bread pudding. Nothing gets wasted. Leftover cornbread got broken into crumbles and soaked in sweetened whole milk, then mixed with beaten eggs, vanilla, and cinnamon, and baked until golden on top and creamy inside. Cost almost nothing and tasted like comfort itself. Take what you have and make it beautiful. That was the whole philosophy of that kitchen, and it served generations well. Number 5, molasses stack cake. One of the oldest desserts in Southern tradition, made in country kitchens where sugar was scarce. Thin gingerbread layers baked separately, then stacked with dried apple filling, cooked slow with brown sugar, cinnamon, and cloves. 6, 7, 8 layers high, then wrapped overnight. The longer it sat, the more those layers melded into something dense and moist and deeply spiced. It fed a crowd and kept for days. And in a time without refrigeration, that mattered everything. I was maybe 7 the first time my mother took me berry picking down by the creek. She had on her oldest house dress and a big straw hat, singing low to herself the way she always did when she was happy. She taught me how to tell a ripe berry. A ripe one comes off easy, she said. Doesn't fight you. If it's fighting you, leave it alone and come back tomorrow. I've thought about that a lot over the years. There's something in there that has nothing to do with berries. Number 6, persimmon pudding. Wild persimmons grow all through the South, but you cannot eat them before the first frost. They'll pucker your mouth so tight you won't speak. After that first cold night, they turn soft and sweet and complex. You mash them through a sieve, stir in eggs, butter, milk, sugar, and warm spices, and bake it low and slow, dense and sticky and dark brown, like gingerbread, but softer, more custardy. My great Aunt Cora made it every November, and she'd say, "The frost is God's way of telling us it's time to make something sweet." Number 7, fried apple, hand pies, dried apples, not fresh dried, cooked down with brown sugar and cinnamon into a thick, jammy mash, then spooned onto circles of lard-based pastry, folded over, crimped with a fork, and fried golden in a skillet. The filling inside was almost candy-like. Mama dried apple rings in the sun through the whole summer. Come winter, those rings meant hand pies, and we never once got tired of them. Number 8, sorghum candy. Sorghum syrup and butter cooked in a heavy pot to hard crack stage, poured onto a greased tin, and then, hands well buttered, pulled and stretched and folded until it turned lighter and silky. A chewy taffy with that deep, earthy sweetness only sorghum has. The whole family pulled candy together at harvest, children and grandparents alike, laughing with buttered hands, making something sweet out of the work of the season. Number 9, hummingbird cake. This cake showed up at every important gathering. The batter was rich with mashed ripe bananas, crushed pineapple, and chopped pecans, spiced with cinnamon and frosted generously with real cream cheese frosting between every layer and all over the outside. You brought a hummingbird cake when you wanted people to know you cared, when you wanted to say, without words, that this moment and these people mattered. One bite, and your eyes would close on their own. Number 10, lemon chess pie. Just eggs, butter, sugar, cornmeal, and fresh lemon, poured into a plain pastry shell and baked into a golden custard with a crackly, almost candy top. There was nowhere to hide in a chess pie. Every ingredient had to be good. Real butter, fresh eggs, real lemon, never from a bottle. My mama's was so rich it was almost like lemon curd that had decided to become a pie. She'd bring it to the table barely cooled, and it would be gone before the supper plates were washed. At my home church, Greater Hope Baptist, outside Augusta, Georgia, the third Sunday of every month was Fellowship Sunday. After service, tables in the fellowship hall were covered end to end with food the women had been cooking since Thursday. The dessert table was something to behold. There was an unspoken competition among those women, and everyone knew it and nobody admitted it. You could feel it in how they set their dishes down. The slight adjusting of a cake stand, the extra little dusting of powdered sugar. You brought your best, every time. Those people were family. I miss those tables more than I can say. I want to stop right here and ask you something. Which one of these desserts do you remember? Was there something your grandmother made that you haven't tasted in 30 or 40 years? Go down to the comments and tell me, even just the name. That memory deserves to be written down, and we can figure it out together. And if you haven't subscribed yet, would you do that for me? We have so many more recipes and stories to share, and I don't want you to miss a single one. All right. Let's keep going. Number 11, grape hull pie. Muscadine grapes, thick-skinned and deeply flavored, were used with careful efficiency. You'd squeeze out the pulp, cook the hulls separately with sugar until jammy. Strain the seeds, then mix pulp and hulls back together and pour it into a double crust pie, deep purple, sweet and tart, with a texture store-bought jelly could never match. This pie took real patience and tasted like every minute was worth it. Number 12, scripture. Cake. Every ingredient listed as a Bible verse: flour from First Kings, butter from Judges, sugar from Jeremiah, eggs from Isaiah. You looked up each verse, and that was how you knew what to add. Cooking and scripture, woven together. The cake itself was a rich, dense spice cake full of dried fruit and nuts, made for revival meetings and Sunday dinners. Some families passed their handwritten scripture cake cards through generations. I have one that belonged to my great-grandmother. I will never let it go. Number 13, brown sugar syrup cake. A simple yellow cake baked in a square pan, and while still hot from the oven, you poured a syrup of brown sugar, butter, and water, cooked thick and glossy on the stove, right over the top. It soaked down in and set up into a shiny, sticky glaze as it cooled. No frosting, no layers, no decoration. Just a plain, deeply satisfying cake that cost almost nothing and tasted like $1,000,000. My daddy's favorite every single Saturday. Number 14, boiled custard. Not a pie, not ice cream, not pudding, its own beautiful thing. Eggs beaten with sugar stirred into hot milk, cooked slowly until it thickened and coated the back of a spoon. Then real vanilla stirred in off the heat. A warm, silky, pourable custard you drank from a cup at Christmas time. Served in the good cups, the ones kept in the cabinet all year. Children got smaller cups, grown-ups got bigger ones, and sometimes something extra went into the grown-ups' cups that we children understood perfectly well. Number 15, coconut layer cake from scratch. You cracked a whole fresh coconut with a hammer, drained the water, pried out the flesh, and grated it by hand. That fresh coconut was entirely different from anything from a bag. Light white cake layers, thick coconut cream filling, white frosting all over the outside, and freshly grated coconut pressed into every surface until it looked like a snowball on the cake stand. This cake appeared exactly 3 times a year: Easter, a wedding, or the funeral of someone very beloved. It was how you said, without a single word, this moment is worth every bit of the effort. Christmas at my grandmother's house, 4 rooms, and a screened porch, and somehow 30 people fit inside on Christmas Day. Cousins on pallets, uncles on the porch despite the cold, children underfoot every second. The smells from that kitchen were something you felt in your chest. Boiled custard on the stove, coconut cake under a dish towel on the counter, sweet potato pie cooling on the windowsill, and Grandmama moving through it all with complete calm, without a single written recipe. It was in her hands and her heart. I watched her every year, trying to memorize her hands. I'm grateful every day that some of what she knew found its way into mine. Number 16, fig preserves, cake. If you had a fig tree, you put up jars of preserves every summer without fail, and one of the finest things you could do with them was fold those thick, jammy preserves right into a cake batter. Dense and moist and deeply spiced, the figs kept the cake tender for days. It smelled like autumn, warm spices and a sweet fruit and something old and good. A simple powdered sugar glaze drizzled over the top, while warm was all it needed. The cake spoke for itself. Number 17, jelly layer cake, thin layers of yellow sponge cake, each one spread with homemade jelly. grape, blackberry, whatever had been put up that summer. No frosting on the outside. The layers were visible from the side, golden cake alternating with jewel-tone jelly. And as it sat, the jelly soaked in and everything melded into one beautiful thing. Tart and sweet, simple and striking. This was a cake that said, I made something wonderful with what I had, and what I had was enough. Number 18, Watergate salad. I know people laugh at Watergate salad today. Too sweet. Not a real salad. Those people have never had it still cold from Miss Johnny May's refrigerator, with extra pecans folded in at the last minute, pistachio pudding and crushed pineapple stirred smooth, then marshmallows, pecans, and whipped topping folded in gently, cool and sweet and almost tropical, on every church potluck table for 20 years, then quietly gone. Bring it back. I'm asking you personally. Number 19. Sweet potato candy. Boiled sweet potatoes mashed smooth with butter, sugar, and cinnamon, then rolled into small logs or balls and coated in shredded coconut and chopped pecans. Chilled in the refrigerator until firm. Cold and a sweet and chewy. Warm spice underneath a cool coconut exterior. Children went wild for them. Adults ate just as many but pretended otherwise. No baking required. Pure, thrifty, delicious genius. Number 20. Vinegar pie. I need you to trust me on this one. During the Depression, lemons were expensive and sometimes unavailable, but apple cider vinegar was always in the pantry. Some brilliant, resourceful woman figured out that good apple cider vinegar could stand in for lemon in a custard pie, eggs, sugar, butter, vanilla, and a measured pour of vinegar, baked into a smooth golden custard that was pleasantly, perfectly tangy. Not sharp, not sour, just right. Nobody who tasted it ever guessed what made it tart. They just knew they liked it. That is Depression era cooking at its most brilliant. My grandmother used to say, waste nothing and sweeten everything. She meant it in the kitchen and in life. She grew up during the Depression, knew real scarcity, watched her own mother make meals from almost nothing and set them on the table with pride. She carried that her whole life, even when times got better. I think about her hands every time I stand in a grocery store with more choices than she ever dreamed of. I try to honor them. Number 21. Peanut brittle, cast iron style. Sugar and corn syrup cooked in a hot cast iron skillet, raw peanuts added to roast right in the candy, then butter and baking soda at the very end to make it foam and lighten, poured fast onto a greased tin, spread thin, left to cool, each shard golden and glassy, studded with deep roasted peanuts. The sound of it breaking, the smell of it cooling. You just have to make it and find out for yourself. Number 22. Banana pudding, the old way. Real custard on the stove, egg yolks stirred into hot milk until thick and deeply vanilla flavored, layered with sliced bananas and vanilla wafers in a deep dish, covered with meringue from those leftover egg whites beaten stiff and glossy, and baked until the peaks turned golden. Served warm, the custard still soft, the wafers soaked through, everything melded into one extraordinary thing. Make it this way at least once. You will understand everything. Number 23. Peach dumplings, ripe peach halves wrapped in biscuit dough, pinched closed, nestled together in a baking pan. Then a syrup of butter, brown sugar, cinnamon, and water poured right over until it came up around the sides. The dough puffed golden as they baked. The syrup bubbled and caramelized at the edges. You scooped one into a bowl and poured that syrup generously over the top. That was what the whole week had been working toward. That was Sunday afternoon done exactly right. Number 24. Sweet milk pie. Whole milk, eggs, sugar, and vanilla poured into an unbaked pastry shell and baked until the custard set with just the faintest tremble in the center. Ivory and silky inside, golden on top, smelling of warm cream, no garnish, just wedges served plain, which made you go completely quiet when you tasted it. Not because it was complicated, but because something that simple and that good requires your full attention. My grandfather ate a slice every Sunday of his adult life. He lived to 91. I'm not saying there's a connection, but I'm not saying there isn't. Number 25, pralines, brown sugar and white sugar cooked with heavy cream to softball stage, then butter stirred in off the heat. You stirred and stirred as the mixture cooled and thickened, pecans folded in generously, then dropped by spoonfuls onto wax paper before the candy set. Each praline pale tan and fragrant, slightly grainy from the sugar crystals, creamy from the cream, rich from the butter and pecans. Somewhere between a cookie and a caramel, and nothing else is quite like them. My Aunt Vera lived in New Orleans her whole adult life, and every Christmas, without exception, she came home on the Greyhound with a shoebox full of pralines wrapped in wax paper. The whole family knew that shoebox was coming. Children watched the window for her taxi, and when she walked through the door, every eye drifted to that box. Aunt Vera would tease us, put the box on the highest shelf and say, "Let me get settled first." When she finally opened it, there was a reverence in that room. We each took one. We each said, "Thank you." We ate them slowly, trying to make them last all year. She passed in 1987. There has never been another shoebox, but I learned to make them myself. And every Christmas, I think of her and hope she knows. Number 26, blackstrap molasses cookies. Blackstrap molasses, darker and more intense than regular, balanced beautifully against sugar and warm spices, ginger, cinnamon, cloves. The dough smelled so good that rolling it out was an exercise in willpower. Cut them thick. They baked up soft in the center, slightly crisp at the edges, the tops crinkling beautifully. Kept in a tin with a slice of bread alongside, an old trick for softness that every grandmother knew. Not delicate, not pretty, just real and good and true. Number 27, fried peach pies, fresh peaches cooked down with sugar and lemon into a bright, fragrant, jammy filling, spooned into circles of rolled pastry dough, folded over, crimped, and fried in butter until golden. The steam that escaped when you bit through carried the whole perfume of a summer peach orchard, a dusting of powdered sugar on top. Every July Sunday without fail, gone before they'd barely cooled. Number 28, pear honey. Firm pears grated on a box grater, cooked low and slow with equal parts sugar for over an hour, stirred patiently as they went from pale and watery to thick and amber and deeply fragrant. It looked like honey and tasted like caramelized pear, sweet and complex and beautiful. Spooned over hot biscuits, it was perfection. Spread between cake layers, magnificent. Eaten straight from the jar and the pantry shelf. Well, I know you've done that. I certainly have. Number 29, soda cracker pie. Stay with me. Mock apple pie made with Ritz crackers, born in lean times when fresh fruit was scarce. A syrup of water, sugar, cream of tartar, cinnamon, and lemon juice poured over whole crackers in a pie crust. The crackers soaked it up and broke down in the oven, taking on the texture of tender cooked apples. A top crust, then baked until golden and fragrant, smelling exactly like apple cinnamon pie. People tasted it and said it was the best apple pie they'd ever had. Then you told them what was in it, and the silence that followed was one of the most satisfying things in all of cooking. Number 30, sweet potato pone. The payoff. And here we are, the one I promised you at the very beginning. My grandmother made sweet potato pone only at Thanksgiving and Easter. She made it alone. No one helped, no one watched. For years I asked her to teach me, and she'd smile and say, "One day, baby." That day finally came in the fall of 1987 when she was 83 years old, and her hands had begun to shake just slightly. She called me into the kitchen and said, "Today we make pone. You grate raw sweet potatoes on a box grater into a pile of pale orange shreds. Into that go beaten eggs, melted butter, and a generous pour of dark molasses that turns the whole mixture the color of warm earth. Cinnamon, ginger, and a fresh grated nutmeg. A little flour to bind it. Just enough milk to make it pourable but thick. You pour that batter into a heavy greased pan and slide it into a low oven. Patient and slow. You leave it there for well over an hour. The sugars in the sweet potato caramelize slowly. The molasses deepens and intensifies. The whole thing draws together from something loose and wet into something dense and sticky and almost candy-like, with a dark top crust and an interior that is moist and chewy and so deeply flavored it makes your eyes fill up. It came to the table in the pan it was baked in, cut into squares, passed around quietly. Every person who tasted it for the first time went completely still. That stillness is the highest compliment a dish can receive. My grandmother passed away in 1991. I am so grateful, so deeply, breathlessly grateful that she gave me that afternoon in 1987, that she decided it was time. I have made sweet potato pone every Thanksgiving and Easter since, and every single time I feel her hands over mine. Don't let the recipes you love disappear. Write them down, make them, share them while there is still time. Recap. Let's set them all on the table one last time. Tea cakes, sweet potato pie the old way, blackberry cobbler, crackling bread pudding, molasses stack cake, persimmon pudding, fried apple, hand pies, sorghum candy, hummingbird cake, lemon chess pie, grape whole pie, scripture cake, brown sugar syrup cake, boiled custard, coconut layer, cake from scratch, fig preserves cake, jelly layer cake, Watergate salad, sweet potato candy, vinegar pie, peanut brittle, banana pudding, the old way, peach dumplings, sweet milk pie, pralines, blackstrap molasses cookies, fried peach pies, pear honey, soda cracker pie, and sweet potato pone. 30 recipes, 30 stories, 30 reasons to get into a kitchen and make something with love. Let me leave you with something my grandmother said that afternoon in her kitchen. She said, "Gloria, these recipes were never really about the food." And I looked at her, confused, because we had just spent 2 hours on sweet potatoes. She smiled and said, "The food was just the excuse. The real thing was always the people around the table, the hands that cooked, the stories that got told, the feeling that somebody loved you enough to stand in a hot kitchen and make something beautiful just for you. Every tea cake set out for a neighbor child, every cobbler carried to a church supper, every praline wrapped in wax paper and brought home on a Greyhound bus, every sweet potato pone made for a family that gathered around it and felt for a little while that everything was all right. Please don't let these recipes disappear. Write down what you remember. Call your mama, call your auntie, ask them before you can't anymore. Cook something this weekend, even if it's imperfect. Make it anyway, because the making is what keeps it alive. I'll see you next time. We're going to talk about the forgotten soul food main dishes that used to fill every Sunday table and have nearly vanished just like these desserts. Until then, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and for goodness sake, get into that kitchen with love from my table to yours.